story, we thought we had discovered a perfect warrior race in the human. The humans were young by galactic standards when we discovered their system. Though we thought them much younger, most species band together and begin expanding into other worlds within their systems shortly after they develop a way to communicate across large distances. But the humans had spent most of their time and energy fighting each other on their one little rock. On the grand scale of things, this was not uncommon, but most species died out entirely before they achieved spaceflight at all, when they were so violent. Humans had somehow managed to not only continue, but thrive despite their warlike nature. All the classic signs of a war culture were there. Tales of glory in battle, large investment of time and effort into instruments of death, even smaller competitive battles for entertainment and sport. It was common among them to do battle barehanded and then laugh and drink together afterwards. But they were less barbaric than most other warrior races. When a member of their race was born deformed, they wouldn't simply smash it upon the rocks, or even end its life with a chemical, as had been my race's practice before we were brought into the Empire to be researchers. No, they had systems in place to care for those born this way, though the totality of their lives. Not well, but care nonetheless. My initial research seemed incredibly promising. Humans had a well above average strength to mass ratio, a mass large enough to be intimidating, but not so large to require redesign of the ships. They could survive a vast range of temperatures given the right equipment, adapt to very low levels of their required sustainment chemicals, even the atmospheric ones. Their nutrient consumption requirements were comparatively low when referenced to other species of similar size. They operated in groups, often, but were capable of independent thought and action. They had even developed a near omnidirectional vehicle for use in their warfare. And while it did seem to require extensive training, they didn't cast breed to create those capable of flying it. That was perhaps the most impressive thing about humanity. On average, any human could be capable of almost any task. None of them were born specialized. The humans even thought they selected their own leaders. At first, this seemed incorrect, and I had assumed caste breeding. But it turns out the leaders were selected by something humans referred to as money. It's been explained to me several times, but I still can't quite wrap my head around it. When I brought my reports to my superiors, they were just as hopeful as I was. The Nekil Empire was made of several races brought together from many worlds, but did not have a warrior race, and were it not for our scientific prowess, we would have been conquered several times over by now. Unfortunately, the Keth Empire had not been swayed by our offers of trade, and were beginning to push into our territory at an alarming rate. Humans could be the turning point for us. Our ships entered orbit and broadcast a message to the entire world in all the languages we had been able to learn. We come in peace. It seemed a wise choice, considering they had several stories of glorious battles against unknown species. Though we suspected these were works of fiction, we received a response inviting us to something they called the United Nations, though it seemed far from united. Our offer was rather simple. Join our empire and serve as our warriors. We explained our advanced technology, our willingness to allow them access to it, and even our willingness to adopt their existing military structures. Why would we tell the warriors how to make war? That seemed silly. The leaders at the United Nations weighed our proposal. and deliberated until Zagar, my superior, became bored. Quite a feat, if I do say so. Zagar was a Trillian, a race that was raised from infancy for complex problems. They didn't even have appendages. They used psychic powers to move things, so it's not that. It was Zagar's idea to broadcast the offer to the entire world, rather than just this small chamber of human leaders. Set up something the humans already had for their military, recruiting stations. The public response was enormous. Millions of humans were flooding into the makeshift tables we had set up in every major city. Humans from every corner of the world, eager and willing to join and fight for the Empire. Though many of them had the same strange question, do we get Gundams? I've since learned they were referring to large robotic suits. A silly idea overall, but I do see the entertainment in it for a war race. The human leaders had no choice but to accept the Empire's offer and to begin integrating at once. But that's when the problems started. First, the design of the small plasma rifle drone, finding some way to incorporate it into the armor we had designed for them. It now sit on the shoulder and had been connected into the neural link, allowing the humans to fire with line of sight targeting faster and more effectively than we ever thought possible. When I saw this, I was incensed. I thought I hit it well, but my dorsal vent's release of hot air showed up too clearly in the human biosphere on the ships. They said steam was pouring out of my ears. When I asked them why, all they said to me was, "Dude, Predator." And that was just the start of it. That's all for today. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this. Make sure to subscribe to our channel.